Bitcoin has been making huge moves. Are we going to correct further, or are we going to shoot over 100,000? In today's video, I'm going to cover what I think is next for Bitcoin and how this is going to affect our alt season coming up. So hit that like button and let's jump into it. All right, today we're going to jump into Bitcoin, what's going on with the price action, and what I think is going to happen here over the next few months with it. So let's jump into it here. So the total crypto market cap is 3.3 trillion. Bitcoin currently, as of this recording, at 92,000. Had a bit of a correction from 99,000. We did not break that $100,000 mark. I want to show you what I think is going to happen here over the course of the next few weeks. So let's jump into the charts. So you can see we made this move up here like 99,600, almost to 100,000, but we got rejected off from there, which I thought we would. I wouldn't think we'd break right through that. That's a very, very big resistance level emotionally for a lot of investors. So I think it's going to take some more momentum to break us up through that price point here. If we look at the daily chart here, you can see a little bit more clearly what we did. We kind of went sideways here in this 87 to $91,000 range, and then we shot up to that 99,600 something. Had a little bit of correction back down as of this recording, got into the 90,000, just under 91,000 range here for a little bit. I'm kind of expecting us to come back down and grab some liquidity in this 87 to $88,000 range for a little bit before we take off and break through this $100,000 level here over the next few weeks. So I think by the end of December, we'll break through to the $100,000 price point with Bitcoin. I have to do a little bit of consolidating, but you know, it's possible it does it sooner than that, maybe before December, but I'm expecting us to go sideways with a little bit of a correction here for a few weeks and into December before we take off and break that $100,000 level. It would not be unlikely for us to shoot up another 40% in December and get over $120,000 with Bitcoin, potentially up to $140,000, $150,000, but maybe we won't do that until early 2025. We'll see what happens here. So if you look at the Bitcoin dominance chart here, we're at 58% right now. I've had a little bit of a pullback from almost 62%. Now, if we look at last cycle here in November, December, we shot up to 70-some%. We may not get this high this cycle, but I would expect Bitcoin dominance to maybe grow a little bit in December if we shoot up in price, to over that $100,000 price point before we start making a big correction down into early 2025 and maybe get down into the 50 to 40-some% range with Bitcoin dominance. And then from there is where we're going to get our major alt season taken off here, probably, in the first few months of 2025. If we look at ETH BTC, we're almost bottoming out here. If we get down into these levels here, down below 0.03, I think that's where we'll probably bottom out with the ETH to Bitcoin pair. And once we start taking off from there, as you can see here back in 2021, that's when we really started taking off, and we had that ETH to Bitcoin pair take off. That's when the alt season was really going crazy in 2021. I would expect something similar in 2025. We jump into the Bitcoin rainbow chart here. You can see we are in the yellow zone here, and I would expect us to, kind of like last season where we break into the yellow and then into the orange zone into 2025. If we break into the orange zone in 2025 and the light orange, you're going to be looking at $110,000 to $140,000 Bitcoin, $150,000 Bitcoin, somewhere in that range. And then we could potentially peak out maybe, touch into the dark orange zone next year, and that would get us to the $150,000 to $200,000 Bitcoin price range. Now, it's possible with everything that's going on with Bitcoin, we get up into the red area, but I wouldn't necessarily expect that. You're talking, $200,000 to $300,000 Bitcoin if that happens. I know some people are calling for that this cycle, but I would not expect that at all. But it is possible. I would just say that, be very careful of your price predictions for Bitcoin, because things are going crazy right now, but it doesn't mean that we're going to go, to Mars. We'll probably go to the moon, but we may not go to Mars. It really depends on what happens over the course of the next year. If we look at the Bitcoin monthly returns here, if we look at November here, we're currently at 31% now. Over the next few days, as we close this candle, this could be higher or lower, of course, but around 30% from November is very good. If we look back in 2020 here, we had almost a 43% gain in November, and in December, we had almost a 47%. That would be massive. You're talking $140,000 to $150,000 Bitcoin if this happens by the end of December. Now, I'm not necessarily expecting that. I'm just saying that it's possible. But, you know, I would expect somewhere between $100,000 and $120,000 Bitcoin in December, potentially, but obviously no guarantee of that. Look back here at 2016, we had 5% gain in November and then 30% in December. So still some good gains back here in 2016. And then 2017 really took off and then had like 47%. And then we had 53% and a 38% with Bitcoin over October, November, December. So really huge moves in Bitcoin at the end of 2017. So I don't expect us to make too crazy of moves like that at the end of 2025. You got to remember that the price of Bitcoin is much higher now. So it takes a lot more capital to move those funds higher in price for Bitcoin. So 2025, you know, my price predictions for Bitcoin is somewhere in the $120,000 to $150,000 price range potentially. And then, you know, if we get up higher than that, that's great. But I don't expect us to get too much higher than $120,000 with Bitcoin. That's just my personal feelings on it out there. I know a lot of people are calling for $250,000 Bitcoin, but we'll see exactly what happens. Nobody really knows for sure. So as far as the actual alt season taking off here, you know, I'm expecting probably around February and March when we really start getting into a healthy alt season here. But I know some people out there say that it really just depends on what happens with the interest rate cuts. I'm expecting an interest rate cut in December of at least 25 basis points, which would be 0.25%. And hopefully they don't decide to, you know, stall interest rates and just pause where it's at. I think they're going to cut it by 25% because they're going to want people to spend more money towards Christmas potentially. So I think that meeting is on December 7th, if I remember correctly. Other people have a theory out there. I know some people in my Discord have a theory about quantitative easing and that having an effect on when altcoins are going to take off. And, you know, quantitative easing is kind of like, you know, injecting more liquidity and more funds into the markets. You know, the Fed pretty much doing that. And they do that from time to time, and they think that we won't get an alt season until we have quantitative easing. That is possible. You know, it definitely is a really solid theory out there with more liquidity and more funds going into the market that people would want to spend it more on riskier assets. But with everything going on with the price of Bitcoin doing so well, I think it's going to draw more investors into altcoins, especially once Bitcoin cools off a little bit. Some of the funds from those Bitcoin profits are probably going to move into some of those altcoins out there. So it kind of plays in two different ways. If we get the Fed injecting more liquidity into the markets, that can have a positive effect on riskier assets for sure, and interest rates coming down and all those things combined kind of help build up people investing in riskier assets like crypto. So we'll see what happens here over the course of the next few months, but really expecting things to take off in early 2025, and just got to wait and be patient until that happens. I know some alts are already doing pretty well out there, and some of them making gains of up to 7x with like XLM and some others at certain points, which is really a good sign that the market's starting to pick up and get strong here. So we'll see, but I would expect over the next few weeks and few months here that alts are going to continue to make new all-time highs with some of these altcoins, especially the bigger and medium caps, and then that money eventually will flow into the riskier low caps and micro caps out there. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in today's video, guys. I really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. That's all I've got for this video. I appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one.